Welcome to our channel, Crime Loom, the place where true crime stories come alive. Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer was an American serial killer and sex offender whose name became permanently associated with horror and depravity. Between 1978 and 1991, he murdered 17 young men and boys. His crimes involved sexual assault, necrophilia, dismemberment, and cannibalism. For more than a decade, he operated quietly, living an apparently ordinary life while concealing the remains of his victims inside his home. The calm and methodical precision with which he committed these acts made his case one of the most disturbing in modern history. Jeffrey Dahmer was born on May 21, 1960, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. His father, Lionel Dahmer, was a research chemist, and his mother, Joyce, was a homemaker who struggled with severe depression and anxiety. The household was unstable. Frequent arguments, medication dependency, and emotional neglect created an atmosphere of tension and isolation. Those who knew Jeffrey as a child described him as polite but distant, intelligent but detached. From an early age, he displayed an unusual fascination with death. He collected insects and small animal bones, dissected roadkill, and stored parts in jars. His father, a scientist, initially encouraged his curiosity, unaware of how dark that interest would become. At age 4, Dahmer underwent hernia surgery. His father later recalled that after the operation, Jeffrey's personality seemed to change. He became withdrawn, quiet, and emotionally unreachable. By his teenage years, he was socially isolated and increasingly reliant on alcohol. Classmates remembered him for his strange sense of humor and his tendency to perform drunken pranks at school, which became known as the Dahmer routine. Beneath this behavior was a growing obsession with control and power, as well as confusion over his sexuality. He experienced fantasies about men, but these were mixed with thoughts of dominance, submission, and death. In 1978, the same year he finished high school, Dahmer committed his first murder. His parents' marriage had fallen apart, and his mother had left with his younger brother, leaving him alone in the family house. One day, he picked up an 18-year-old hitchhiker named Stephen Hicks. The two spent the afternoon drinking and listening to music. When Hicks tried to leave, Dahmer panicked at the thought of being abandoned. He struck him with a dumbbell, strangled him, and later dismembered the body. He buried the remains behind the house and crushed the bones with a sledgehammer. This killing went completely unnoticed. Dahmer was only 18 years old. After high school, Dahmer attempted to attend Ohio State University, but dropped out within months. His alcohol abuse worsened, and in 1979, he enlisted in the U.S. Army. He trained as a combat medic and was stationed in Germany, where fellow soldiers later accused him of sexual assault. His performance declined, and in 1981, he was discharged due to heavy drinking. Returning to the United States, Dahmer found himself directionless and unemployed. For several years, he drifted between temporary jobs and lived with his grandmother in West Allis, Wisconsin. She was unaware that her home would become the setting for several of his early crimes. During this time, Dahmer's behavior grew increasingly erratic. He was arrested in 1982 for indecent exposure and in 1986 for masturbating in front of 2 boys. He was given probation but continued to spiral. In 1987, he murdered again. His victim was 25-year-old Stephen Tuomi. Dahmer claimed to have awoken in a hotel room to find Tuomi dead beside him, with no memory of killing him. He transported the body to his grandmother's basement, dismembered it, and disposed of the remains. This marked the point of no return. From then on, killing became a compulsive pattern. He later said he killed not out of hatred or anger, but because he wanted to possess his victims completely. Between 1987 and 1991, Dahmer killed at least 15 more men. Most were young, gay men of color whom he met in bars, malls, or on the street. He lured them with offers of money for photographs or companionship. Once they were inside his home, he drugged them, strangled them, and performed sexual acts on the bodies. His apartment at 924 North 25th Street in Milwaukee became a chamber of death. He kept body parts in drawers, skulls on shelves, and human remains in the refrigerator and freezer. In one corner, a blue barrel filled with acid was used to dissolve flesh from bone. He meticulously documented his crimes with Polaroid photographs, capturing each stage of dismemberment. Dahmer also conducted gruesome experiments. He attempted to create living zombies by drilling holes into the skulls of victims and injecting acid or boiling water into their brains. His goal was to render them submissive yet alive, a permanent companion who would never leave. None of these experiments succeeded. His victims died within minutes or hours, and Dahmer continued to live surrounded by their remains. The smell from his apartment was so strong that neighbors complained repeatedly, but their concerns were dismissed as exaggerations or assumptions about his lifestyle. Several times, Dahmer came dangerously close to being caught. The most tragic instance occurred in May 1991. 14-year-old Konarak Syntha escaped from Dahmer's apartment, drugged, bruised, and disoriented. Two women found the boy and called the police. When officers arrived, Dahmer calmly told them that the boy was his 19-year-old lover who had simply drunk too much. Despite the women's protests and clear signs of distress, the police returned Konarak to Dahmer's custody. Within minutes, the teenager was dead. Dahmer later said that this incident convinced him that he could continue killing without consequence. By the summer of 1991, Dahmer's killings reached their peak. On July 22, 1991, he brought home 32-year-old Tracy Edwards. Once inside, Dahmer handcuffed him and attempted to subdue him, but Edwards managed to escape and flagged down two police officers. He led them back to the apartment where they discovered photographs of dismembered bodies. A full search revealed human heads in the refrigerator, a heart in the freezer, and multiple skulls scattered throughout the apartment. The blue barrel of acid contained decomposing torsos. The crime scene was so gruesome that officers were visibly shaken. Jeffrey Dahmer was arrested on the spot. During questioning, he waived his right to a lawyer and calmly confessed to all 17 murders. Over several days, he described each killing in chilling detail, including how he stored, photographed, and even consumed portions of his victims' remains. His demeanor was emotionless, analytical, and cooperative. Investigators described his confessions as among the most horrifying they had ever heard. The evidence was overwhelming. Photographs, tools, skulls, and preserved organs left no room for doubt. His trial began in January 1992. Dahmer was charged with 15 counts of murder in Wisconsin and later faced additional charges in Ohio for his first victim. The defense admitted the killings but argued that Dahmer was legally insane, citing his necrophilia, cannibalism, and delusional experiments as proof of mental disorder. The prosecution countered that Dahmer was fully aware of his actions, noting the deliberate planning and concealment involved in each crime. Psychiatric experts debated whether Dahmer suffered from psychosis or severe personality disorders. After 2 weeks of testimony, the jury found him sane and guilty on all counts. He was sentenced to 15 consecutive life terms, nearly 1,000 years in prison. In prison, Dahmer was kept under close supervision due to the notoriety of his case. Over time, he expressed remorse for his actions and claimed to have found religion. He was baptized in prison and began reading the Bible daily. Fellow inmates described him as quiet and polite, though some reported that he joked about his crimes, unnerving those around him. On November 28, 1994, Dahmer's life ended violently. While performing cleaning duties in the prison gym area, he was attacked by another inmate, Christopher Scarver, and beaten to death with a metal bar. He was 34 years old. The aftermath of Dahmer's crimes left a lasting mark on American society. Investigations revealed deep flaws in law enforcement and exposed how bias and negligence contributed to his ability to continue killing. Many of Dahmer's victims were men of color from marginalized communities. Their disappearances were often dismissed or ignored by police. The failure to rescue Konarak Syntha became a symbol of institutional prejudice and neglect. The case forced police departments nationwide to re-examine how they handled missing persons reports and community complaints. Psychologists and criminologists have studied Dahmer extensively. He displayed traits associated with borderline, schizotypal, and antisocial personality disorders. Yet he maintained a level of intelligence and composure that concealed his instability. He expressed deep loneliness and a desire for total control over others, describing his murders as an attempt to create permanent companionship. Dahmer once said, It was my way of making sure they wouldn't leave. His crimes blurred the boundaries between sexuality, dominance, and death. Unlike killers motivated by hatred or rage, Dahmer acted out of a twisted form of attachment and fear of rejection. The cultural impact of Jeffrey Dahmer's case has endured for decades. Documentaries, interviews, and dramatizations continue to explore his life and psychology. The 2022 Netflix series Monster, the Jeffrey Dahmer story, reignited debate about how such stories should be told. While some viewers sought to understand the criminal mind, many criticized the series for reopening trauma for the victims' families. The renewed attention reminded the world that behind every headline were real people, sons, brothers, and friends whose lives were taken in acts of unimaginable cruelty. Jeffrey Dahmer's story remains a disturbing reflection of human darkness. It reveals how isolation, neglect, and unaddressed psychological disorders can manifest in catastrophic ways. It also exposes the failures of institutions meant to protect society. More than 30 years after his arrest, Dahmer's crimes continue to challenge our understanding of morality, sanity, and evil. His name has become a permanent warning of what can happen when human empathy is replaced by obsession and control. Subscribe to Crime Loom and join us as we unravel more heists, mysteries, and untold legends.